A man who's played cricket for Kenya, Aasif Karim, he captained Kenya at the 1999 World Cup that was played in the Netherlands and England. Aasif Karim, welcome to the English service, KBC.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
I know there is one article that is on the site that we're looking at, ESPN Cricket Info. You've said so much, the state of the game. Basically, no one is keeping up with Kenya cricket, and the last 2 weeks have not been good for Kenya cricket. The game is at times referred to as a gentleman. Is there anything gentlemanly about the sport now?
Well, it's very painful and unfortunate, the state of cricket that we are in right now, where there are squabbles that have been going on. But there is a history to this whole thing. It's not something that has just happened overnight. This is something that has been lingering for several years. When your foundations are not strong, it's inevitable that you will have issues that are coming up. So it was very, very important that when Kenya cricket was on the rise in the mid-90s, it was very important at that stage to have got the foundation and the systems in place so that irrespective of who is in the administration, the structures would hold it. Every country has politics. Every association has politics. There you cannot run away from it. If you look at India, big cricketing nation, Australia, England, they also have. But the structures are so strong that maybe when a tree is very strong and the foundation, you can cut a branch, the tree will still remain.
I'll mention that because you talk about that. The team that played in the 2003 World Cup and made it to the semi-finals, you were part of that side. You were called from retirement, drafted back into the squad. But the question is, that team looks like was the last that had a foundation of some sort. What exactly happened in between? Because there was supposed to be a development center at this Simba Union Club.
Correct. I think that's very well put. When the Kenyan cricket rose in the mid-90s, I think at that time it was very important to have built a very good structures, because the Odumbes or the Tikolos or the good players that we had obviously are going to phase out. What comes in next? So it was very important to have a good structure of the junior development for the under-13s, with the under-15s, the 17s, 19s, which would be the feeding system to the national team. Now that is for all sports, not only cricket. That should be for entire sports, whether you take rugby, whether you take hockey, whether you take football. We didn't have that. We had nothing of substance. That was number one problem. Second problem was that our domestic competition weakened. In the late 80s and 90s, the competition was so strong, and we had professionals coming from India and Pakistan. So they really uplifted our sport. The players wanted to do well. The clubs got into it strongly. Sponsorship was quite good. So it was a euphoria of cricket in the 90s. Unfortunately, the thing went down.
Well, I mean, so did Kenya cricket have the kind of power to retain players like Mohammed Sheikh? Nobody remember. I mean, you've got to be in the cricket circles to remember Mohammed Sheikh played for the national team under your captaincy in 1999. Went to Australia, hasn't been heard of again. Think of somebody like Alfred Luceno. I think he was going to be a world-class baseballer. What exactly happened to players like this?
Correct. I'll go one step back. During my earlier stage, there were my colleagues who played, which I felt that they gave up prematurely. People like Alfred Boy Junguda, Edward Odumbe, Tariq Iqbal. The system was such that, you know, if you are having maybe a bad run in a small tournament or another tournament, you are regarded that you are finished. Now, experience is something you cannot buy. You earn over a period. You need to nurture those cricketers. And surely after some time, if you feel that the cricketer is not good enough, or the cricketer himself does not want to continue, you need to bring him back into the system to play a role of the experience that he's had. Some may be very good in development, some may be very good in administration, some may be very good in coaching. That never, if you look historically, most of the cricketers that have finished have been left out, have been completely in the oblivion. And that is the biggest tragedy and one of the reasons of why we are in where we are right now.
I will just mention something about, I mean, let's talk about, the player development. At one point in Kenya, and I'll say, as recently as the end of last month, somebody was called up to the Kenya national team for an African tournament, and according to me, they did not qualify to be playing for Kenya. I'm talking about Abraham Vadada. I won't hide the name. But also, I'm trying to think of Tanmay Mishra. He's an Indian citizen qualified to play for Kenya by domicile. Seren Waters has played for Kenya but qualifies to play for England. Can we retain those kind of players?
All the names that you've mentioned and even the names you mentioned before, it's very important to create a pool of players. And you can only do that if you retain the names that you've mentioned. These are people who have represented at a high level in the domestic league and or have played for the country. Now, if that's experience that you're building. Now, all of a sudden, because of some petty disagreements or minor issues or personal problems or egos come in, we discard the players. Right now, I personally, about a month back, I watched Maurice Auma at the Jaffrey Club playing Swami Baba. And the way he was playing, I am shocked or rather surprised why he's not in the national team. Here is a player who has been captain the Kenya team at one stage, is on a good run. Now the question is was it because of his behavior, or was it because of a personal problem with coach? Was it a problem with the administration? Nothing is coming out. And it's important that for us to know the truth, and the transparency is very important. We always try and hide and put things under the pillow, and these are the results. We must be honest with ourselves first before we want progress.
Let's now talk about the team and discipline. Discipline. It's very rare and very, very difficult for the whole cricket setup and everything. They even originated the word cap. Everybody talks about so many caps for a country. That's pure cricket language. Players rising up against a coach. That you would hear in other sport, but not cricket, ideally.
You know, this is really perplexed me because it gives me a lot of memories. Now, we are talking about the coach is Steve Tikolo and Martin Suji. These are your guys that I have played with. I have captained them. I have seen them from a junior level to doing wonders for this country. They have been great to this country. But the way they have carried themselves at the moment, they are going into disgrace themselves. You know, it's a real shame, because here are players who have done wonders for the country, have done great internationally, respected cricketers locally and internationally, but the way things are going at the moment and the way that the grapevine discussion is going on, it seems that they are actually to be blamed themselves with the way they have carried the whole system.
Here's a question. Martin Suji was head coach Uganda, Steve Tikolo assistant coach Uganda. Uganda started beating Kenya. What exactly is wrong? I mean, it's the same two people, they just switched countries and everything flipped.
Well, but you must not compare Uganda and Kenya. Kenya's cricket is way, way ahead. The Ugandans have been looking at these two stars of Kenya, Martin Suji and Steve Tikolo. They were being looked up to. So they have definitely had a lot of things to contribute. And of course, they have a lot of experience. But it's one thing to be a good player. It's another thing to be a coach. You know, man management abilities are very, very important when you are looking after a team, because it's not an individual sport. Every player in the team has a different psyche, has a different way of looking at things. So as a coach, as a manager, it's your duty to blend the team together and work on individuals. And you've seen all the success with most of the team sports, that the technical bench and the team management, where the man management abilities are at the highest level for the success of a team that is of a sporting team.
Coaches also are required here, and also picking knowledge. I try and consider Mike Hasson. He coached New Zealand, the current New Zealand side, to the Cricket World Cup final. They lost in the final, but he was here in Kenya. The reasons behind him leave him unfortunate. But when these people come in here, are our coaches looking for the knowledge, to tap the knowledge, or are they just in awe? Or at times do they consider them, oh, who's this New Zealander now?
You see, the issue which we must understand, that the entire sporting structure in the world, whether it's cricket, whether it's tennis or any sport you take, the bar has gone up, the level has gone up, the knowledge has gone up, the technical knowledge has gone up. Unfortunately, our coaches are not competent. I'm sorry to say that. They don't even have the qualifications to coach a team of that nature. I remember having a meeting with our previous GM called Cobus Oliver, he's South African. And unfortunately, that's another story. None of our GMs last. Where is the problem there again? He specifically mentioned to me that he was totally against Steve being appointed the coach, because he doesn't have the competency or the knowledge to lead a national team. There are many other competent coaches. There's got to be a criteria for selection of a coach.
Who would you pick as coach? Without preferring anyone, give me about 5 names, people who would be suggested.
In my view, there is nobody competent in Kenya to lead a national team. We have got so many applications that have come from outside. I'm very much for supporting Kenya. I believe in supporting Kenya. But if we don't have the capacity, then we have to outsource the matter. And there are many coaches in the neighborhood. If you look at South Africa, there are plenty of qualifications there. That's a successful cricketing nation. They must be doing something right. So it was very easy to try and source from there, or historically, Kenya has good coaches from India.
Here's the thing. Has the board of Kenyan cricket been doing capacity building properly? Have they been investing in coaches?
As I said over and over again, and I say it here again, your intentions can be very good, but if you are not competent, it is of no good. The board that we have needs to go home. We have an incompetent board, and I can say it 100 times, that we have an incompetent leadership. We have people who have no clue what they are doing. When you have a leadership that is insecure, what are you expecting? Compromises. Any insecure leadership will always compromise for the survival, whether it is a sports, whether it's a government, whether it's an institution. Unless you have a clear direction with clear goals and being sincere to the job, we are just wasting time, and important time is being wasted as far as Kenya cricket is concerned.
Well, I'll be telling you this, and I'm sure you'll want to watch this. There is a documentary that was done about cricket. I need to get that documentary. I just read about it. I need to watch it. It's known as The Death of a Gentleman. Is the whole cricketing world going through what has been described as the death of a gentleman?
Well, I have seen that documentary. I think it's a must-watch by all cricket lovers. Not only that, it will also for any sports lover, because it's talking about the unfairness by ICC, the governing body of cricket, in discriminating the associate countries. That of course includes Kenya. So all the associate countries are being discriminated, and here is a classic example. When we qualified for the World Cup in 1996, 3 countries from the associate countries played. That has been ongoing. We did very well in 97. We got an ODI status where we were automatic qualification for the World Cup. After 2007, we had to go back to qualifying rounds. I'm asking myself, what was the administration doing? Why were we removed? What did they do to salvage it? That's one. 2, in 2015, the associate members were not supposed to play in that World Cup. Due to pressure, the ICC had to give in. Now, for qualifications for 2019, it's going to be only 10 teams. The 8 top teams of the test playing will qualify automatically. The 2 bottom will play with the rest 4 or 6 associates that are going to qualify in another tournament where 2 teams will qualify. So the chances for the associates countries is almost 0. And it's a dream for every cricketer to play a World Cup, whether it's a test playing country or an associate country. And when you call it a World Cup, I think it's the responsibility of the ICC to ensure that it's an all-inclusive World Cup.